Why is it bad that what?
Macbeth murdered the suspect.
Or like, what's the problem with that?
Wait, I have a bunch.
Because then they can't question them.
Yeah, does anybody want to add or subtract to that? Yeah.
Well, they can't question, so they can't figure out what really happened or who was really behind it.
Yeah.
What fundamental problem of desire confronts Lady Macbeth?
She got what she wanted, but she's still not satisfied.
Yes, sir.
She said something kind of like, now that we have what we wanted, we have to have no fear of losing it. So it's because they got it through a bad way, that it's not secure.
Yeah.
What is the womanly defense?
To claim innocence.
Yeah, it was utilized by Lady Macduff, and she said that I didn't do anything wrong, and didn't work. Yeah.
Is sleepwalking in itself human?
It was unnatural. The doctor said that.
Yeah.
It is because it, like, when you sleepwalk, you reveal your darkest secrets. So.
Yeah, I think that's one of those sort of interpreted ones. So you can, if you can back up whatever, you can say whatever. Yes, sir.
Why is Macbeth beginning to suspect the intimidation of the
What was the question?
That was when it's in yeah.
Is that when the wood starts coming up to the castle?
Yeah. That's when it dawns on him that maybe he might have been fooled because the woods were coming. Like, well, the woods aren't really coming, but oh yeah, that you were first.
On what basis is the date of Connor's supposed confession confirmed? Act 1.
Yeah.
His own confession.
Allegedly reported, right? So it's weird that it's always heard from somebody who heard it from somebody. Yeah, that was just one of those ones to try and get you to read closely. Yeah. Right.
What does take a bond of fate mean here?
Where's that?
Act 4:1, after the 3 warnings and before Macbeth talks about killing Fleance and oh no, it's after the 3 warnings.
Jane?
Talks about killing Macbeth just in case. He tries to kill him. Even though the witches said that he didn't have to.
You're gonna do that?
Taking control of his own fate.
Good. Yes, sir?
Is there any more to Macbeth's auditory hallucination than sleep no more, Macbeth doth murder sleep?
Is there?
No, he just hears it over and over.
Yeah. I think Polanski did something interesting with his you notice that when Macbeth was doing his interior monologues, he'd start mouthing it at weird parts, so it kind of blurred the lines. But I think so far as the play indicates that's it. Definitely.
What happened to Lady Macbeth's baby?
Oh, yeah, that's a weird one because, sorry. That was just like in my head. Because she said, I know how like fun it is to give suck to the baby who's nursing you, all that stuff. But she says I would have.
Yeah.
So, but they've never had kids. So I don't think she ever really.
Well, but she says that she knows what it's like to give suck, and as far as I know, I mean, the female anatomy will ever be a mystery to me. But I think that you have to be at least late term pregnant to lactate. That I don't know. Is that true? I don't know.
So you get
Oh yeah, because of the oxytocin thing, right? Okay, yeah.
Wait, what?
So I had read it as that she had a baby at some point, but is she sympathetic enough to have hysterical lactation?
But she said that she would have dashed its brains out, not that she had.
Right.
And so, but the fact that they don't have, so.
But she said she knew what it was, so she's given suck, because she says she knows what it's like to get sucked, but yeah, she didn't bash the brains out.
So just baby died.
Yeah, or something.
Okay.
But she's we should look at this, but I mean, she's sort of got, it's because she's like she's got this weird missing child and this weird father thing. Yeah.
Is it possible that she might have just like done it for someone else's child?
Yeah, because then we'd have to have the oxytocin, sympathy, lactation, and then plus, I mean, you picture her as like, oh, well, let me see your baby. And like, I'm so into your baby that I'm lactating.
That is a
I don't know, maybe, I mean, because she is, I mean, it turns out that she's really super, super, you know, like empathetic and emotional.
Yeah, her and Macbeth kind of like swapped emotional states.
Yeah, the old proverbial passing of the phallus. Anyone else?
Yeah, what is Macbeth's strange infirmity?
What is Macbeth's strange infirmity? Yes, sir.
Fits of dementia?
Losing his mind, can't keep it together, and you know, ruining dinner parties. I know we've all done that at a dinner party before. It's so embarrassing. The Fitzgeralds used to have little cards that said, "I apologize for blank on the date of blank." they had printed out for party behavior. That's Zelda and F. Scott for you. Is there a hand over there? Yeah.
Men without brains, do we just look at them? Is that, it's, accuracy for an answer.
Act 3, Scene 4. Oh, unlike in the good old days, what do men without their brains do with stools?
They pushed the living off the stool? Or like prevent them?
No, they didn't. But back in the good old days, men without brains didn't take your stool. They left your stool alone. I'm trying to prompt you guys to see the funniness in a lot of this language, but it's falling flat apparently. All right. Unless there's any more. Well, I think it's all kinds of a problem, but like I'm gonna do a manly disclosure Macduff style. Like sometimes parts of the play just hit me and I start tearing up and I'm just sort of like I get really, really upset. And I don't really understand why, because like I mean it's sort of it's a weird play. And yeah, he Shakespeare didn't really do tragedy after this. This was sort of it for him. And then it doesn't look like that. You know, he probably wrote it for King James because King James really liked witches, and it doesn't look like King James really liked it. And I'm not sure Shakespeare really liked it. I mean, he spent a lot of time revising, you know, Lear and especially Hamlet, which was the other big tragedies from this time. And this didn't get published until the folio version, so quartos weren't going around. So that means it probably wasn't popular. It wasn't very long. Seems I don't know. It just doesn't. I wanna look at. I think the problem might start with the first scene. So we're going to look at these different versions. Is that full screen yet? We've seen this one.
3 meters in thunder, lightning, or in rain.
When the hurry-burry's done, when the battle's lost and won.
That would be ere the set of sun
Where the place,
upon the heath.
there to meet with Macbeth.
This is that Australian one we were talking about.
When shall we two meet again? Thunder, lightning, or in rain?
When the hurly-burly's done, when the battle's lost and won.
That will be ere the set of sun. Where the place,
Upon the heath,
there to meet with.
So will thy words become thee as thy wounds, they smack of honor both. Go get insurgents!
When shall we three meet again? In thunder, lightning, or in rain?
when the hurly-burly's done, the battle's lost and won.
That'll be air, the set of sun,
Where the place? Upon the heath.
there to meet with
Macbeth.
fair is foul, and foul is fair.
Over through the fog and filthy air.
Fair is foul, and foul is fair. Hover through the fog and filthy air.
So, yeah, and then you're like, I think that Polanski's is kind of passable as a sort of almost serious thing, but if you're familiar with Polanski's work, he does really well with the sort of kind of comically, like, over the top. You know, like, have you seen Rosemary's Baby? You haven't seen Rosemary's Baby? You should see Rosemary's Baby. It's about a innocent little Catholic girl that goes to the city, marries an actor, then they move into a new place that's that's haunted or whatever, and then it turns out that that there's this big conspiracy of Satan worshipers that have raised Satan from the dead and rape her while she's asleep to give birth to the Antichrist, and then in the end she finds out that what happens and goes in there, and her husband was in on it because Satan gave him a job or whatever, and there's this little demon baby And then the end, she picks up the little demon baby, and just because she's a mom and loves it. And you see it's like little, but it's still kind of a disturbing movie in spite of that kind of ridiculousness. And I think, I mean, how would you, have you noticed, all right, so let's talk about these three scenes. All right, so which would you say is the most serious and tried to make it the most, you know, like disturbing and powerful and dramatic?
One.
Hmm?
The first one succeeded the most, I think.
Okay,
Doing
but
what
it was kind of, you notice it was a little goofy? I mean, it was
goofy as the other two.
No, but I mean, but not like in a bad way, but like it was playful, you know, like it was the lines were just kind of, you know, given just with the, you know, not the real crisp, you know, like language. It was just these mumbling old ladies, and it was just kind of these mumbling old ladies weirdly like burying things and just sort of, and you know, talking to each other with possible implications, and you know, like especially the old language is, you know, almost cartoonish. But then but so it's sort of, I mean, it's creepy, but not, you know, like it's like, huh, that's kind of weird. And then the second one, you could tell they were trying to be artsy, right? And then you see, and then when they deliver the lines, everybody was laughing, right? Why? I mean, let's look at the lines.
They're like schoolgirls.
Yeah, so they're like schoolgirls, and they're just yeah, I mean they're hissing and I mean, it reminds me of some people in the department, yeah.
In the theater department.
I was thinking English, but probably theater too.
I thought what was really interesting was with the first one, like the aesthetics and like the way that they presented themselves and carried themselves and acted was like more believable and everything. But the way that they delivered their lines, you couldn't understand what they were saying, and it didn't really sound like a question. They were actually talking to each other. It sounded like they were actually having a conversation, like, oh, where are we gonna meet? When are we gonna meet? Okay, we're gonna meet here. You know?
Yeah.
So
did the clarity help it for you, or because I personally preferred that it was just kind of muddling, that didn't really make sense, and just like this kind of murmuring in the Polanski. And then when it seems like the further the language comes to the front, the more apt we are to start laughing, like not in a good way. You didn't have that experience?
I felt like if the Three Weird Sisters in the first one had spoken, like if they mumbled, that's fine, but if they had spoken actually as a question, like, and actually were replying to each other, because when it was mumbled, and they were just mumbling, it wasn't talking, you couldn't understand what they were saying, and the entire point of the words are lost.
Okay, yeah. I don't disagree with that. And then the last one, it was real clear, right?
That was just fucked up.
That was
I thought that was like the thing that
When you watch the whole thing, it's really good, but like just seeing.
yeah, but I mean, it's remember how I've been harping on you how important the first lines and especially the first scene are, and for Shakespeare, and you know, and getting the tone of the whole play. And this is just. I saw a hand over there. Yeah, Blake.
Well, I've seen that whole version, the last one, and they tried to be really serious with it, and it was serious, but it was so overly dramatic that you couldn't follow what the hell they were saying most of the time, because like they would get really quiet, really loud. I like Polanski's because you could actually understand, and the way they said it made sense, and it wasn't like so so modernized like that second one. That was like,
yeah,
it was like high school girls having a conversation. I'm like, what's happening here? But I don't know.
Yeah.
I did like the first one more simply because it seems like they're just talking to each other. It doesn't seem like overacted. It doesn't seem like they were rehearsing their lines to prepare themselves to say that. It just seems like out of the open.
Yeah.
It's more natural.
I mean, first of all, I mean the acting's better, the director's better, but it doesn't sound like a conversation like you were saying, and to me that helps it because it was you that said that this didn't really seem tragic to you, right? The whole play. So I mean, you know, just looking at, like, compared to Henry IV, Part 1, I mean, what happens different in the plot? What's the difference between Hotspur and Macbeth? There's a traitor who gets killed at the end, but, Henry IV is a history play, but it's sort of a comedy too, right? And then, but this doesn't, I don't know, you got something to say?
I personally don't like any of the three because when I first read Macbeth for the first time, I got the feeling of like hocus pocus, like that's how I wanted them to be. And I had to my first assignment was to light design that scene. So of course mine was reds and greens and purples. So all three of these don't give me the feeling of what I want to feel when seeing that.
Yeah.
So I didn't like any of them.
Well, I did say that I don't think that I think that Polanski deviated from what Shakespeare was doing quite a bit, and I think that's what made it work as a movie. I think that the more time I spend with Macbeth, the less sense it makes, and it's a muddle, and I think that you're honest, because I think that let's do our version of Act 1, Scene 1, and just ham it up all the way. Who's feeling theatrical? All right. We got Abe. Abe's the first witch. I'll be the second witch. Give me one more. Oh, come on. And if you guys knew how many theaters. All right. All right. So you're the third witch. All right. So first witch, get us going.
When shall we three meet again? In thunder, lightning, or in rain?
When the hurly-burly's done, when the battle's lost and won.
That will be ere the set of sun. Where the place?
I found the key.
There to meet with Macbeth. Green Market.
Pat calls.
Anon.
Fair is foul and foul is fair, hovering through the fog and filthy air. And I'm going to say that I like our version the best. I think that, no, I'm serious. I think that this is what these are not profound, serious, resonating, nightmare-creating lines. This is spoof. This is not.
That was my favorite.
Right, we did it. We nailed it, right? And so we do the. I always like to do the really close reading on the first lines, and make the first day of studying any play, just horribly tedious to get through because we never get out of Act 1, Scene 1, right? But I feel like it's important, and in spite of the misery I inflict upon you, I insist on doing it. So just think back to. Let's think back to the opening of the other plays. So what was the first lines of Midsummer Night's Dream? You don't have to remember, just what was the context. Who spoke them?
This man does one way and
Yeah, so it's Theseus issuing a proclamation that turned out to be kind of it's a problem proclamation, but it's the king being the king, right? And then we think of Henry IV, Part 1. How does it open? Apparently I'm going to have to start spending 2 classes on the first 4 lines of these plays. Yeah, King Henry issuing a proclamation that, is a problem, and he cancels himself out and stuff. But you've got kings issuing proclamations, so you start with the head of state determining the state of affairs, and for better or for worse, they set it down, and kingly, proclamation is the word I want, because the king's speech acts, and the king sets the stage, and this is what's going on. And so we've got this, and not a proclamation, a first witch asking a question. So when shall we three meet again? So who's in charge of this? Who's in charge of all right, so the first witch asks a question, so she's not in charge, right? So she asks, when shall we three meet again, but then in thunder, lightning, or in rain, which is weather a when? What is weather? Is it a how? I guess it could be a when.
You could make sure it is a when.
Yeah.
Next time it happens.
Yeah, okay. And or in rain is weird. Why not and in rain? Any hypotheses? And then, so the second witch answers, so maybe she's in charge. She says, when the hurly-burly's done, now, and then, so this is, I think, is an interesting line, is when the hurly-burly's done.
What's the hurly-burly?
What's a hurly-burly?
It's like, fight.
Alright, so the way that this is generally read is when the battle's over, the hurly-burly being the commotion of the battle. But hurly-burly means topsy-turvy, and, flipped over world. And then you want to read done as being finished, but done also means accomplished, right? So this is sort of a key equivocation, ambivalence of language. Is it could mean when the battle's over or when the flip has been accomplished. You see what I'm saying? Okay. And then so the third witch just kind of chimes in on what the second witch said, right? So now I'm thinking that there's some sort of combination between the second witch and third witch that's in charge. But since the third witch, she just seems like one of those people that's, like my 3-year-old, when I'm disciplining the older sister, she says, yeah, Bernadette. And so she's not really I don't know who she's really in charge, but ostensibly she's not in charge, but she just kind of chimes in and gets a little authority kick off that. So then first witch, where's the place? Second witch answers again. And then first witch, I come, Greymalkin. Am I pronouncing that right? Nobody ever leaves this part in the play. And I think it's important. But they always cut the wrong lines and leave the lines that I would cut. Maybe I should be a director. What do you think? And then so what's Greymalkin? It says
The witch's attendant spirit of her cat.
yeah. So she's just everybody's servant, right? So she's serving her cat.
Mm-hmm.
That's and the cat serving a spirit. And then Paddock calls. So the second witch isn't in charge either, right? Because she's got to go with the toad calling her. And then the third witch, typical, she stays in character. No, because she's just the 3-year-old. And so according to this, the sort of state of the situation is who's in charge then? A cat and a toad. Yes, sir.
Well, I kind of took it as like that witch isn't telling them to get going, but rather saying like, I'm gonna come to my spirit animal too.
Okay. Wouldn't you go to if you were in charge though, if it was an act of will? Either way, I don't think it really matters. I'll go with either one. But yeah, blah 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 blah. And again, this is silly. You can't get away from it. I mean, I noticed that you guys were laughing at inappropriate times during the movie too. There was I want to establish this right off the bat, using this first scene as evidence. I'm not entirely sure we're supposed to take this play seriously, but I think that if you do it right, that makes it even more disturbing. Because remember our history of comedy lecture? There'll be stuff on the test, so if you missed that day, you should watch it. It's up. All of the old classes are up on YouTube now. But we were talking about one of the differences between comedy and tragedy, and why people put up with tragedy. And I told you about the colostomy patients. You remember that? Mm-hmm. Right. And so the idea is that we enjoy tragedy, even though horrible things happen in tragedy, because tragedy is really meaningful. And even though the tragic hero dies, it's at the service of a larger purpose. And we're willing to be miserable so long as it's for a higher purpose and there's something beyond it, there's something meaningful to it, right? So like Oedipus, Oedipus, was in a, he killed his dad, had some kids with his mom, and was in big trouble for it, gouges out his eyes, goes and suffers. But it's affirming because, this is the way that it was supposed to be, and it was fate, and and it solves a lot of anxiety if there's meaning, even if the meaning's bad. Like with the colostomy patients, like Daniel Gilbert said that we'd rather be unhappy than have just the mere possibility of happiness, because that disturbs us. And and so what's the meaning of Macbeth, the play? Like, do we get that tragic coherence and that justice is served, right? The bad king gets killed.
But he was supposed to be our hero, and I just felt like he deserved it, and I didn't really feel sympathy for him.
Hey.
I agree with him. The whole time you can't help but like Macbeth, even though he's a antagonist, you know, he's a douche and everything that he's doing is just kind of contrary to consciousness, or conscientiousness.
The bad manners thing.
Well, unlike other tragic characters, I mean, he's sort of out of the bag right away as being kind of a bad guy.
Mhm.
He's swayed. Everybody else kind of like doesn't know something, and that leads to their downfall, and so it's really sympathetic. But he's fully aware. He's even informed that should he do this, he won't have sons that are kings, and doesn't even think that far ahead. So I mean, there's not that catharsis there.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, sir.
Well, we know this is his last tragedy, and it seems like kind of a play of indifference and kind of nihilistic, so maybe this is like Shakespeare becoming disillusioned with tragedy, and so going out by writing this pointless play.
Yeah, and you know, that's a people have thought that, and I think there's something to it. And then also the other thing we got to keep in mind is that it looks like he was trying to write this play to, as I said, to appease King James, and his relationship with royalty's comments on his characters he seems to be kind of passive aggressive about it. You know, like I think that like I read Midsummer Night's Dream as being a really scathing commentary on, you know, like love and marriage, and it's supposed to be at a marriage ceremony. And then Queen Elizabeth famously wanted more Falstaff after Henry IV Part 1. So he wrote The Merry Wives of Windsor, which is probably not his best work, and then kills him, and just makes him nothing in the next Henry IV play, and then finally kills him off. So he didn't really, you know, like it's not like he made, you know, like the Falstaff Chronicles, you know, to appease. So I think that he was always kind of passive aggressive when he was getting directly financed on a project. But yeah, I don't know. Let's Toad's in charge. Yeah, and so let's look at the king's entrance. And so recalling the proclamation thing, let's get what bloody man is that? He can report as seemeth by his plight of the revolt the new estate. So what is the grammatical function of the opening sentence? Is it an imperative?
Question.
A question. The king's asking questions, which repeats what the witches were doing. And then So what does asking a question imply? Yeah, you don't know the answer. So how would we characterize the king's relationship with knowledge right at the get-go? He doesn't know anything. Is that a problem?
He doesn't know that Macbeth was going to kill him.
Yeah, I mean, he sort of, it's a recurrent thing, right? And then the second sentence, he does kind of, I mean, at least he's not asking a question. He can report, as seemeth by his plight, of the revolt the new estate. So, and he's talking about the bloody man, right? But then this weird, as seemeth by his plight, this isn't a real strong speaker, right? He's qualifying. That's like when you're writing an argument, you know, like in your paper, and your 101 teacher said, no, don't put I think, or you know, perhaps, or maybe you're hedging it, right? You're not being assertive in your writing, right? He says he seemeth. So you know the king, you know, like Theseus, you know, douchebag that he is, would have just said, he'll be able to tell us. He's all, you know, bleeped up. I get through a semester without dropping the F-bomb. And but he's just like, oh, it seems like he might be able to know. But yeah, so this parenthetical insertion kind of, I think, affects his credibility, and credibility is everything. Do you know about the old the Dr. Fox experiment that they did? I think it was in the 60s or 70s. They paid an actor to give a series of lectures to undergraduates, graduate students, and professionals, and it was the mathematical application of game theory to physical education, and they got a team of people that knew nothing about mathematics, game theory, or physical education, just to write just a bunch of just nonsense and big words and non sequiturs and self-canceling statements and big words and a lot of jargon, and then he just practiced these known confidence cues, and so he gives his lecture to the undergraduates, and so the control, like say the control got 3.5 out of 5 on the evaluations, and it was a guy that knew what he was talking about, and so he gets like say a 4.7. I forget what the actual numbers were. So he fools the undergrads. Well, that doesn't really surprise us, right? I mean, but then so how do you think the graduate students did? Exactly as bad, and the professionals too. So and it was just the idea is that what their point was they wanted to stop getting teacher evaluations. But the thing was that if you convey confidence, people listen to you whether or not you know what you're talking about. Now watch me start trying to do more confidence things. No. So that's called the Dr. Fox effect, which is kind of fun. So so do we think that this kind of personality, like, is it politeness or weakness?
Could be both.
Is politeness weakness? If you're fighting a bear, you want the person that's fighting the bear with you to be polite. Well,
He's going to save you because it's being
yeah.
polite.
Kind of.
Maybe he brought an
that's
extra
a
sword
question.
for you. I don't know.
You run away, I'll fight the bear.
It's all right.
But I think that it does suggest that, for better or for worse, that the king is dependent upon others for his information, and ultimately probably his power. I guess every king's sort of dependent on others but I think being dependent on others for the information might be a problem. Now, in the Holinshed Chronicles, which is Shakespeare's primary source for this and many other of his history-related plays, maybe we'll be able to talk about why this isn't a history, but because this was a historical account. But Duncan was a really weak, effeminate king. That he was a problem, and he sort of needed to be gotten rid of. And because he was too weak, he couldn't keep the state together. And most critics read Duncan as a good, slightly naive, but a good king. That prosperity reigns under his rule, and he's associated with images of fertility. And I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, why didn't Macbeth use that as a justification to murder him? He said he couldn't come up with any reasons to murder him because he was virtuous and X, Y, and Z and all these things. And that was one thing he used to dissuade himself in the middle of it from killing him. He couldn't find any reason. So.
I don't know.
I forget where I was going with that.
Well, let's real quick. Let's see what he has to say for himself. Let's go to page 14, which is Act 1, Scene 4. So this is and this is just another one of those moments where it's just like, are you trying to tell me that this isn't a comedy? Like a Polanski or Kubrick dark comedy, right? Can I get a king? I believe that those of us that did The Witches have proven our mettle, and someone else should step up.
How old is he? About?
However you interpret him. He's old enough to have grown children.
There's no art but in the mind's construction. The face. He was a gentleman on whom I built an absolute trust. Oh, worthiest cousin, the sin of my ingratitude, even now, was heavy on me. Thou art so far before, that swiftest wing. A freedom prince, slow to imitate thee, with the highest less deserved. With the portion in payment might have been mine. Only I have left it saying, more is thy duty, and more is all I can pay.
Killed it. All right. It's like, yeah, you don't wanna get that mic passed to you, man. So we've got all kinds of fun going on here, right? So we've got some good Mossian gift stuff, and we've got, like, how is this not a joke? So at the first line, there's no art to find the man's construction in the face. So he's talking about, wow, gosh, I really can't read people. And there was this guy, and I had absolute trust in him. Here comes Macbeth. Oh, worthiest cousin! How's that not a joke, right? I don't know, nobody else thinks so. So what does the first sentence suggest about him then? This is a gimme. We just talked about it. You can get participation points. And when I look at your picture at the end of the semester, when I'm deciding on who gets participation grades, I'll be like, I remember you answered this question. Hopefully it doesn't burn too clearly in my memory.
What are you asking again?
What does the first sentence suggest about the king?
That he is horrible at reading people, but then he is very trusting and will trust anybody anyways.
A guy kind of like Jimmy Carter. You guys remember the legend of Jimmy Carter? Well, he was a really, really, really nice guy. He was by far the nicest person that I've ever heard of being president, but he was totally ineffectual. And then I think of Duncan as Jimmy Carter, and I think of Macbeth as Nixon. and then Malcolm's kind of Slick Willie Clinton. In my version, I'm gonna have people wearing those president's masks play the. So enter Macbeth, Banquo, Ross, and Angus, and then we've got the O that I'm always really into, right? What does O suggest? Yeah, change of heart, birth, recognition of a desire. So that means that after the O, we've got to start looking. We've got to start looking seriously at what the guy's saying. So, 14 for 21. O worthiest cousin. So let's put some general. We can either use the words that Shakespeare uses or just some associative tone words. So, how does Duncan describe himself in what follows? Or how does he describe Macbeth? That's easier. What kind of words describe Macbeth? I'll start. Worthiest. Deserved. Cool. No. Rad. What phrases does Duncan associate with himself here? Or what acts is he doing or not doing that he's talking about? We've got the sin of ingratitude. Inadequacy. I'm going to say he's inadequate. Why am I saying he's inadequate? He's got a debt that he can't pay. He's too obliged. That's not good, right? I think he to me he sounds more like somebody that's requesting an extension from a loan shark than a king to his fame.
Wait, why does he come across that way?
So it's, O worthiest cousin, the sin of my ingratitude even now was heavy upon me. So he's sitting there simmering in the sin of his ingratitude. So we have two ways to read this. What are the two ways we can read this? Remorse? Maybe more than two ways. Is he just being polite? Is he just going through social conventions and just, so this is what you say. I don't really mean this, but, oh, you're so worthy, Macbeth. Good job. I owe everything to you, but just sort of, the way that Academy Award winners thank their hairdressers, you know, when they're, it's like, yeah, I owe it all to Sandy, my hairdresser. Is that going on here?
I don't think he's that way.
Huh? I mean, is he capable of that kind of duplicity?
I think he like means what he's saying, but at the same time he kind of overdoes it. That's how I interpreted it. It's like he's going a little too far on
Yeah.
this, like he gets it.
So like too far like overdoing it, or too far like TMI?
Like overdoing it, I think. Like he's saying how much he owes Macbeth, kind of over and over.
Add to that.
It almost seems that he's, because it's already established he's a bit of a pushover, like later, like he's very trusting and everything, that people probably don't do him a lot of favors because they're always taking advantage of him. So when someone finally does something that's kind of nice, he's like, oh my god, wow, holy shit.
Yeah, I think you could do something with this. Yeah. Anyone want to disagree? I don't. But then, of course, you know this, more is thy due, than more than all I can pay. So maybe he's just sort of, you think maybe he's just kind of signing his own death warrant there?
It's kind of in a way feeding Macbeth's own insatiable ego.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's not consciously, you know, like, I mean, the thing is I mean, you know, we know from a lot of studies that people have done on cheating that everybody kind of cheats, and if you can justify it, you know, like when they give cheating tasks to students, they'll do a high cognitive load thing before they run the cheating test, and so if they're stressed out, they cheat more, and because they just feel like this idea is you can steal a little bit if the world owes it to you. And so this kind of creates a situation in which Macbeth is sort of, he's got other people, including the king, saying, "Hey man, take it. We kind of owe it to you. You know, like remember that $200 you lost 2 weeks ago, and now this $50 is right here on the table, man. The world owes it to you, man." Has anyone ever experienced that sort of thing, and stealing from your place of employment, you know, siphoning cash, stealing pens, that sort of thing? Well, I just want to throw this in. One of my favorite philosophers, the esteemed psychoanalyst and all-around crazy guy, Slavoj Žižek, has in his massive book on Hegel, he theorizes that there's two different distinct kinds of stupidity. And then one is the idiot, who can be very intelligent, understands the situation logically, but misses the hidden rules of social interaction. So the example here is, you know, like you're going through the checkout line at Trader Joe's, and the person at Trader Joe's says, "How was your day?" And you say, "Oh God, I just had gas, just so bad all day long. My knee's killing me. My wife's sleeping with the dog." And he's like, "Whoa!" So that's an idiot, right? So then you have a morons on the other side of the spectrum, right? It's this kind of naive belief in common sense. Doesn't understand that the falseness of pleasantries. You know, it really kind of believes them. Has a naive faith in social convention. So my favorite example of this is somebody. I remember I was riding my bike way too late, and there was somebody at a pedestrian crossing at like 2:30 in the morning, like pressing the button to wait to cross, and there's just nobody. That's a moron, right? It's just like, oh yeah, no, that's what you do. So which is Duncan? We're all kind of both. I have moments of both, probably on any given day. I think Duncan's kind of a moron. So let's go. So if he's a moron, then more is thy due than more than all can pay. It's a bad thing. Let's go back to because God forbid we get out of Act 1 in the first class. So still I feel like we can squeeze a little bit more out of this first line. So we've got, he can report, as seemeth by his plight, of the revolt the new estate. What does that mean? Oh, can somebody just paraphrase it for me? Blake.
He has the look of someone who's been involved in combat.
Yeah. So he can report as seemeth by his plight. But what does of the revolt the new estate mean?
Latest news.
Yeah. So so we could kind of switch it around. Of the new estate of the revolt. So kind of like what's the news of the revolt. But wouldn't it be better to say, to change that around and just say he can report as seemeth by his plight of the new estate of the revolt? I mean, doesn't this seem like kind of I don't know, does anybody have a really good ear for meter? I decided not to teach poetry along in this class because I just thought that I didn't want everybody trying to figure out counting ions and spondees and whatnot, but if anybody has a knack for it. Okay, and I actually famously have a horrible ear when it comes to poetry. It's one of the reasons I don't study poetry. Some people, just about 3% of the population, just can't hear beats, and I'm one of them. So I don't know if changing the new estate and of the revolt would change the meter. That could be an argument.
It'd be easier to hear.
Yeah.
Because like that is harsh when you hear it.
And
And
it
it
would-
doesn't make sense to your mind, it bugs me.
Yeah. But I think that, like Shakespeare, I think we can at least proceed as if all of Shakespeare's mistakes are on purpose. And so I think that changing the syntax around here kind of implies that revolt is the new estate, and he is kind of making a proclamation that the new estate, as in capital state of the country, the state of the situation, is revolt. And so that would accomplish the hurly-burly from 1-1, right? Yeah.
I was just gonna say it wouldn't affect the meter at all.
Okay. Thank you. All right, I appreciate it. Yeah. So then there's got to just be it's got to be a meaning thing, and I think that he's sort of in his Duncanian way, he's sort of proclaiming hurly-burly. And then so now the witches can meet Macbeth. Don't you want them to say Macbeth?
Yeah.
In my version, we're saying Macbeth. So if he's proclaiming revolt to be the new estate, this puts him in a precarious place. And our old friend, remember the Lord of Misrule? That's exactly what the Lord of Misrule does. It's his first act. Declares hurly-burly. So if Duncan is sort of serving as a Lord of Misrule, that's a problem, right? Well, I mean, not for me, because I study comedy, and that means that Macbeth's a comedy, and that'll make it a lot easier for me to study. But for traditions, people who like tragedy. But anyway, so the Lord of Misrule, the famous Lord of Misrule account, is from the quote anthropologist Fraser, who wrote the famous Golden Bow, and it's been largely debunked, maybe entirely. But one of the things, it's a good read nonetheless. But his history of the Lord of Misrule started in Saturnalia with the Romans, and apparently they actually did. The soldiers would elect one from their midst to be the actual Lord of Misrule, and you actually got to be king for 30 days. And everybody had to do it. It was as if you were king. But the catch was, at the end of 30 days, you got your neck slashed on the altar of Saturn.
That sucks.
Yeah. I have no idea if it's true. I mean, I tend to doubt it. But it works for. Some people think that Fraser got most of his ideas from Shakespeare, and I think that it jives with Shakespeare. A lot of people see Macbeth as a kind of Lord of Misrule in a sense, but I think that we might do better to just see the kings all just being a succession of Lord of Misrules. We have Duncan, the Lord of Misrule, / Macbeth, the Lord of Misrule, / Malcolm. We'll see. I love what Polanski did with the end, right? And by the way, this was on your test. Garber did talk about it. It was in the Garber reading. It was extra credit because it wasn't a reading question, but Garber did talk about it. The end of the Polanski thing had Duncan going to not Duncan, Donald Dane, Malcolm's brother. And if something happened to Malcolm, who would be king? Yeah, and so he's going to the witches, so it's just like, here we go again, right? This is why I think Polanski nailed it, but anywho. So now we've got Malcolm. radically overestimate my ability to get through this. So, can somebody read Malcolm aloud? We don't need to ham it up. We just need to go fast. Yeah.
This is the sergeant who, like a good and hardy soldier, fought against my captivity. Hail, brave friend, say to the king the knowledge of the Moron as thou didst leave it.
Okay, so what's the sergeant's or the bloody man's relationship to Malcolm? And why is he bloody?
Bodyguard.
Yeah, he was fighting for Malcolm, right? So he's dependent. So Malcolm, like the king, is dependent on the arms of others, right? But what's the difference? What's the difference in Malcolm's relationship to knowledge?
He knows the answer.
Yeah. So he's taking the position of the person that's knowing. He's either the second or third witch, depending on how you look at it. In this situation, ooh, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, that'd be an interesting thing to do. Maybe it'll be a midterm question. All right, stop, Daniel. Stay on task. Let's get as much as it's done as humanly possible. So he's dependent on arms, but he's not dependent on others for knowledge. So he's not a moron, but I mean he's a little bit of a wuss, but he's not a moron. No way we have time to go to the next one, because now we got to go look at his. And I got to give quizzes back, and you guys are probably sick of me letting you out late, right? All right, we'll get to the other contenders to the crown.